VSiN, the sports betting network. This is the VSiN Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford, getting you ready for the week ahead with our NFL best bets, college football best bets, a look at the Heisman market, maybe a little look at baseball. We are doing everything today. So happy you're here with us now. Harrison, you had a winning bet last night, but you also had a win in your personal life. Let's hear about it.
For the first time since we have started this show, guys, and we've been waking up early to do this show, 7 to 10 Eastern, I was able to get to the gym, and it felt oh so good. It's been a while waking up at 5:30 in the morning, and you guys know I still want to stay up as late as possible to watch the ending of the last game. So I've been getting my nap time in a lot. It was good, though, to get in the gym. And it's funny, you say you don't have the energy to go to the gym, Michael, but then when you actually go to the gym, you get the energy to go back to the gym. It's funny how that all works out.
It's like Austin, fat bastard said in Austin Powers, I eat because I'm unhappy and I'm unhappy because I eat, you know? And so it's a vicious cycle, and you either don't do it or you not. I mean, it's hard to get in a routine. That's the one thing about the NFL season that you love. People think the off season is more relaxed. The off season is chaotic because you have no predictability with your schedule. Whereas the season, everybody knows you're going to work late today. Whereas in the routine, that's the one thing about the NFL season that you love. People think the off season is more relaxed. The off season is chaotic because you have no predictability with your schedule. Whereas the season, I mean, today's Wednesday, everybody knows you're going to work late today. Whereas in the routine, that's the one thing about the NFL season that you love. People think the off season is more relaxed. The off season is chaotic because you have no predictability with your schedule. Whereas the season, I mean, today's Wednesday, everybody knows you have practice. Everybody knows you put red zone. Everybody knows you're going to work late today. Whereas in the
looking at the Yankees schedule, they play Baltimore, their second to last series of the season. That might decide it right there, Harrison. So this one coming down to the very last days of the season. I'm excited. Right now, the Orioles are just a half game back of that AL East lead. You got any feelings about that right now, Harrison?
No, I mean, for me, again, it doesn't work for me to put any money down on that future because it's not advantageous enough. The Orioles were, as you said, a half game behind. I'll just wait till that series gets started, make sure all the pitchers are healthy on both sides, or if they look at the pitching matchups on both sides, and I'll bet that series every game of it, and then see how it pans out from there. But I think that's the way to call it for the AL East.
Yeah, well, for what it's worth, I'm looking at the FanGraphs model right now. They give the Yankees a 61% chance to take the AL East title. So at least for a fan, that's good for you. And then once everything resets, we can get into our best bets for the futures market there. But let's take a look at what's coming up on today's show. We have 3 guests joining us today. Will Hill joining us later on in this first hour with his best bets in the NFL and college football. John Fanta, you probably saw him go viral this weekend. He is a known Deshaun Watson critic. He will let us know how he's been doing since then. And then in our final hour, it's Adam Burke with his best bets in MLB and college football. Coming up in this hour, we're hitting our NFL news of the day. Michael Lombardi has a new website or a new article up on the VSiN website, why the Colts can't win, and he's not holding back there. We're also taking a look at the Heisman market movement. But guys, let's get into the NFL news of the day now. And there is still somewhat of a quarterback controversy going on in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin saying that Justin Fields will start against the Broncos. So that would be the young guy suiting up for the second week in a row. But let's hear from the coach himself on the situation.
But as I sit here today, we're preparing as if Justin is going to be our quarterback. I think that's the appropriate way to do it. Speculation is a waste of time. Russell's hurt. He's not available to us. And so, as you guys know, as a general practice, man, I focus my energy on those that are available and their readiness.
If he's healthy, will he start on Sunday?
That's a big if. I'm not into the hypotheticals. As I mentioned right now, he's not healthy. And so my time and attention is focusing on the readiness of Justin.
I love that guy. I mean, that guy is so good, isn't he? I mean, isn't he just so good? He is straight to the point. You just feel motivated. I mean, when you listen to him talk, you just know that he can inspire people, and he's an inspiration. And I think, to me, Grace and Harrison, I think that what Justin Fields did on Sunday in Atlanta, a lot of Steeler fans were in Atlanta. You know, for all this talk about the Falcons being this incredibly gifted team with the Super Bowl hopefuls and how excited they were and how they had sold out their season, I think there were more Steeler fans there. They had to go silent count for the Falcons when they had the ball. Shocking, right? But I think, to me, what Fields proved on Sunday was his ability to protect the football. He threw the ball outside the numbers. They never challenged Jesse Bates in the middle of the field. They ran the football. They won the game with defense. They won ugly, Harrison, like they always seem to win. And I think that formula is always going to be Mike Tomlin's formula. And as long as Fields protects the ball, he will keep the job.
Yeah, you talked about them winning that game with defense. T.J. Watt was spectacular in that game. 3 quarterback pressures, had a 17.6 pass rush win percentage rate. He was on top of Kirk Cousins and that Atlanta Falcons offense for the entirety of the game. But, you know, going back to the quarterback situation, yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this offense continues to evolve, or if it will evolve under Justin Fields. This is actually in this game, Michael, they had 20 snaps in 13 personnel. And for those people out there who might not know the 13 personnel, that means 3 tight ends, 1 running back, 1 receiver. So under Arthur Smith, I think this is going to look very different than what we would see in your typical NFL offense. So as they continue to evolve, or if they do evolve, it's going to be interesting to see. We've seen this total go down from 40.5 to 37.5, and maybe that's not just a recommendation because of how the Broncos have played, but because of how the Steelers played offensively as well. It is a defense-first game. You just got to get Justin Fields to not have any turnovers, and it looks like they'll always be in the game, especially with Tomlin kind of running that defense, T.J. Watt causing the havoc. And if they're able to run the ball with all these guys, Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris, and obviously Justin Fields going to run the ball too. And don't forget, they also brought in Cordarrelle Patterson, who was with the Falcons with Arthur Smith last year as well. So if they're intent, if they could keep it within one score and they could still stick to their game script, their game plan, I think Justin Fields is going to hold on to this job, Michael.
Well, I think there's no question that's their game plan. I mean, that's their game plan for every game. They're going to do it. I think, and where the difference is, Sean Payton's not going to allow his right tackle, Mike McGlinchey, to be one-on-one with J.J. Watt. They're going to double him, triple. They're going to make sure every protection is set towards T.J. Watt. Alonzo Highsmith should have a better game. You know, he's got to go against Garrett Bowles over at left tackle. But to me, this is all about style of play. That's why we see the under come down so significantly, because both teams want to run the ball. Both teams don't want their quarterback to lose the game. And so whenever that scenario sets up, right, you're going to play an under. Whereas, like, if we lean ahead, Grace, to Indianapolis and Green Bay, you know, Matt LaFleur's got a very challenging job. He wants Malik Willis to not lose the game, but is he going to be able to run the football, which people have done on the Colts? So this is a game where both teams want to run. Both teams want the clock to keep moving. Both teams want it to be in the fourth quarter, and both teams think they can win the game on a field goal. So unless one makes mistakes, I think this is definitely a low-scoring game, Grace.
Yeah, you know, I came in here today excited to give out the under for that game. It's moved 2.5 points at this point, so I have to reevaluate, find another angle here. But you're right, all about style of play. It's going to be an ugly one, but honestly, I'm a sucker for low totals. I love those. I love a good sweat, so we'll see what happens there. All right, coming up on the other side of the VSiN Morning Line, writing spotlights for Michael Lombardi. He's got an issue with the Colts, and he is breaking it down for us, so don't go anywhere. You're watching the VSiN Morning Line.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Wednesday on Follow the Money, where we have a lot of day baseball to go over. VP of Circa Mike Palm in studio, and also Sal Palantoni, who called an easy Bucks win. Follow the Money weekdays 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Responsible sports betting starts with a game plan. That means stick to a budget. Keep it social, learn the game, and know the odds. Play with legal operators, and if you need help, reach out. Visit haveagameplan.org to learn more.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Fills in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's Late Night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. No overreactors here, just truth tellers. And that is exactly what our Michael Lombardi is doing in his latest column titled, Why the Colts Can't Win. And by the way, you can read that over on vsin.com. And if you've already looked, you can cash the over half a reference to The Godfather. But let's take a look at the diagnosis here. Yeah, go ahead, Michael. I'm guessing I need to add that to my... Yeah.
That's oh yeah. You haven't watched The Godfather? Oh my God, I don't know how I'm doing a show with you, Grace. I might leave now.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
I might leave now.
I can't do violence. I'll watch The Sopranos for you, but The Godfather's a no.
But it's subtle violence. It's subtle violence in The Godfather. Yes. It's not bloody and gory. It's Grace, you got to get it done.
Your movie list must be nothing. If you eliminated violence, Grace, from your movie list, what are you watching? Hallmark every day? Are you watching Hallmark every day, Grace?
Hallmark Christmas season is the best time of the year.
Oh my gosh!
I know, I'm softer than the bagel.
Oh my gosh! I love it.
All right.
God.
Well,
see, we learn a little bit about you every single day, Grace. Hallmark Christmas. Yes. We'll get you, we'll knit you a sweater for this year. There's no question.
Thank you. They're predictable. They're safe. I feel safe and cozy on my couch with my cat. It's okay.
Grace, you gotta watch Kill Bill 2, a Quentin Tarantino movie. Now, it's a very
there's no way, Harrison,
movie.
She's not watching Quentin Tarantino. There's no way. There's no way. Her and Quentin Tarantino wouldn't be in the same country together. Are you kidding me?
I love Quentin Tarantino movies. My favorite one is The Hateful Eight. But there's a scene actually in Kill Bill 2 that it was so gory and it was going to get rated, NC-17? So that they actually made it black and white so that it could stay rated R. It's a very good movie, I must say. Very good movie.
She's
especially
not
that it's this. No, probably not.
Yeah, she's not.
I can't even handle like action, thriller, suspense. I just get too nervous.
Oh, God.
So I'll let you guys do. You guys can just give me the synopsis.
This is getting too deep. This might be a therapy session. We might need to call Dr. Phil in here for this. This is getting a little too deep. All right, let's get back on the Colts, Grace. Get us back on track here, please.
No Dr. Phil today, but we do have Dr. Lombardi, and this is his diagnosis of the Colts defense right now. He says his basic scheme allows young players to play without overthinking, and therein lies the problem. His scheme is too basic, simple, and easy to attack. It provides the quarterback with too many easy throws. It never takes away the other team's best players. All right, so what are some examples we saw of that past weekend?
Well, look, okay, you spent all off season, you're watching Hallmark, and Gus Bradley should have been watching the Houston Texans game against the Indianapolis Colts. And he saw Nico Collins beat him last year. And so now you have a whole off season, and you open up in May, you open up with the Houston Texans, and Nico Collins has been a huge problem. You understand that. So what do? You say to yourself, like Belichick said on the Manningcast, double Garrett Wilson, double this guy. Not Gus Bradley. No, Gus Bradley's going to run his stuff. He just sees plays. He doesn't see players. So he never makes the defense. He never makes his defense allow the offense to get uncomfortable. They're always comfortable. And when you're a dome team, one of the dream jobs I always wanted in my career was to be a general manager in a dome stadium. Because of the crowd noise, if you built a big team in a dome, you had the ability to stop the run just because of the crowd noise. Remember, the snap count is the number one advantage the offense has. And when you're playing in a dome, it's hard to hear. And that snap count advantage tends to go away, especially for the run game. And so you should be a great run defense, not the Colts. And so for me, this is really an issue. So this is a lineage problem here. Because what I try to explain in my column is Shane Steichen got the job, and he got the job and was told he had to keep Gus Bradley. Why? Because Gus Bradley became best friends with the owner's daughter. Because Gus Bradley is a wonderful human being. Because Gus Bradley is friendly. He's not toxic. He's easy to get along with. And also added to the flavor was that Gus Bradley and Shane Steichen happen to be really good friends. But here's where it has to change, and there's where I put the great quote by Corrado Soprano Jr. in the Sopranos, is you're the leader. You got to take charge. You got to steer the ship here. And he's going to get in the way. And Elliot, our producer, Harrison, knows more than anything that I've been bitching about this defense for 2 years. But don't listen to me complain. They're 28th in points scored the last two seasons allowed. And they've never been able to stop anybody. So I just think, to me, that at the end of the day, Gus Bradley will kill them.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate as you're pointing out what Gus Bradley's defense is going to do. And so as a bettor, Michael, now I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to target the Indianapolis Colts and this porous defense that you're discussing going into this game? And unfortunately, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers isn't Jordan Love. It would be so easy to potentially target it over. Look at Christian Watson, or look at Romeo Doubs, or look at or Jaden Reed, or any of those guys on the outside. But again, it's Malik Willis. So I'm kind of confused on how I could target there. And I don't even know if you get in a game script that could potentially profit if you look at Josh Jacobs' rushing yards, because they could be in a negative game script where he's not able to run the ball. So one of the things that I did look at, Michael, and I'm curious to get your opinion on this, whether Malik Willis is good or not, it feels as if Josh Jacobs can be his check down wide receiver. Obviously, he's a running back, but his check down running back / wide receiver, he could end up being one of his primary targets in that offense on Sunday. I went back and looked at it. Indianapolis Colts last year, they had the 8th most receptions allowed to the running back position and the 4th most receiving yards allowed to the running back position. So I know the props aren't out yet. They will come out later today, probably after the injury reports come out. But I think looking at Josh Jacobs almost feels like a safer bet in terms of a prop market for the Green Bay Packers going against this Indianapolis Colts defense. Because again, with Malik Willis, it would be nice if he could get good targets to Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs, but I can't trust him to do that. I do think it would be a lot easier to complete passes to his running back and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I have no confidence in Malik Willis in terms of being able to execute a simple throw here. But what I would say to you is that Matt LaFleur understands this defense as well as anybody. Any good offensive coordinator that goes against Gus Bradley, like we saw last week with Bobby Slowick, they're going to attack it. There's too many easy throws. Now, Malik Willis struggles just to make easy throws. Hell, he couldn't throw the Hail Mary pass at the end of the game. So that's not going to be easy. But I do think Jacobs is the player. I think Jacobs' total yards as a prop is a good play. Because, look, they gave up all these yards to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon looked like he was reborn last week running against the Colt defense, which doesn't adjust during the game. See, this is the biggest issue. Every game, the first quarter tells you what's going on. Then the second quarter and the third quarter are about adjustments, Grace. And then after that, the fourth quarter becomes a standalone game. Look, I would definitely, the line's 3, I would definitely take the Packers if I had just a little bit of ounce, Grace, of Malik Willis complete a pass. Remember, go back to the Kansas City game. I think this tape belongs in the Hall of Fame. Mike Vrabel takes his Tennessee Titans into Kansas City with Malik Willis at quarterback. He can't complete a simple pass, doesn't get first downs for 3 quarters, and the game still goes into overtime against Patrick Mahomes. So, I don't know if Matt LaFleur can manage Willis as well as Mike Vrabel did.
Michael, I'm glad you brought in the in-game adjustments because yesterday at his Tuesday press conference, Gus Bradley said that the Colts lightened the box in order to handle the Texans' 3-star receivers. And then they ended up putting too much emphasis on coverage over their run fits. And for what it's worth, Next Gen Stats says Joe Mixon ran against an 8-man front 26% of his snaps. So I guess that checks out. But, my question is, reading that quote is, where were the in-game adjustments? Or are the Texans just a pick-your-poison type of offense?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, they had the ball for 40 minutes. And they ran 70 plays in the game. The Colts scored 27 points in only 20 minutes. I mean, the Colts have enough offense to win the game. I think Shane Steichen has as much ability to be an offensive designer and play caller as Kyle Shanahan, except he doesn't have a good defense. And Gus can talk about it, but everybody in the league knows Gus's defense is too predictable. It's old school. He's outdated. And because he's still running Pete Carroll's system that goes back to Seattle in 2012 and 2013, everybody understands how to attack it. If you don't evolve, there's a great saying by Eric Shininsky of the United States Army, the chief of staff. He says, if you don't like change, you're going to become irrelevant soon. And the Colts defense is irrelevant by its scheme, and there's no adjustments. And it's just is too easy for any good quarterback to complete passes. Now, it'll be hard for Willis, but it'll be hard for it's not hard for any good quarterback.
Yeah, and you look at the personnel he had in Seattle too. Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman. He doesn't have that in the Colts, and Chris Ballard isn't trying to bring it in. So that's why it's so hard to replicate what he had there in Seattle. But I'm sure we'll be discussing this.
And he's got to have 4 Hall of Fame defense. He's got to have 4 Hall of Fame defensive linemen for this to work, and he doesn't.
All right, more on the other side. You're watching the VSiN Morning Line.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
Don't wait until fall to start betting the NFL. Get a jump start now with the VSiN NFL Betting Guide and get prepared for this NFL season like never before. The guide has in-depth breakdowns for all 32 teams, best bets from our VSiN experts, playoff predictions, award market previews, and more. The guide is out now, and the only way to get it is to be a VSiN Pro subscriber. Head to VSiN.com/pro to sign up and join the sports betting network.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We'll have much more breakdowns on the NFL's Week 2 slate, but we're going to turn the page to college football here on the VSiN Morning Line. Welcome back, Harrison Sanford, Grace Remington, and Michael Lombardi joining you on this Wednesday morning. And I will say, as a broadcaster, as a journalist, there are just certain names that eventually you're going to have to learn if they become to a notable level. For a while, guys, I had to really come to grips with DJ Uiagalelei. I know some people try to cheat and just say JU. It's DJ Uiagalelei. I know, Grace, when you were covering Alabama,
Birmingham market, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You had
that's when Tua was there.
Mm-hmm. How many times were you like? It takes a lot of reps to get it down correctly.
It does. It was an absolute tongue twister at the time. My colleague at my station actually did a story when he went to New York for the Heisman ceremony. He went up to people on the street and like put a mic in their mouth and just showed them the name and said, "Can you pronounce this?" And it turned into like this 2-minute package of just people just falling over themselves. It was funny.
Another name that obviously has become very common among all sports fans, Antetokounmpo, that is for sure, as he's risen from to a high level. At first, it was not easy. And then there's another name that we're keeping track of as it pertains to the Heisman watch. And shout out to Grace for helping me with this one. Nico Iamali. Oh, here we go. One more time. Nico Iamaleava. Iamaleava.
Yeah, good luck.
Almost
just
there.
Call him Nico. Harrison, don't even try to just call him.
Iamaleava.
Yeah,
there
just
we
call
go.
him Nico.
Actually, if you look at it,
simple.
it actually is phonetically spelled right. Iamaleava.
There we go.
I think we'll get it.
Well,
everyone will learn how to say it eventually.
Yeah. Eventually, you're going to have to because he is absolutely. Yeah, eventually you're going to have to learn it because he is definitely playing at a high level here for the Tennessee Volunteers. And I know their defense gets a lot of credit, particularly with James Pierce there at defensive end. But Nico is absolutely balling right now for Tennessee. And we're seeing some interesting movement in the Heisman market, Grace, as it pertains to him.
Yeah, so I said this last week. If Tennessee blows out NC State, which is a legitimate team, his Heisman odds would skyrocket. I think he was 14-1 last week. And looking at, I know this graphic here is showing him 12-1. He's somehow 4-1 at Caesars. So they took a really large bet there. So I guess shop around for this one. I still think people are not giving Tennessee as much attention as they deserve. Looking at Nico's game in that one, he had a 30-yard rushing touchdown, 2 pass touchdowns, over 200 yards. He had 2 interceptions, but one wasn't his fault. His arm got whacked as he was releasing the ball, and it was one of those things where the ball just flies up and it's a lame duck. So definitely lots of room to grow, but the good thing is that defense is awesome. I mean, it's good enough to make Tennessee maybe a top 4 team in the country. So they're going to be getting off the field quickly, giving Nico lots of time to get out there and pad his stats. You look at what he did week 1 against Chattanooga, over 300 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. That's exactly what you should be doing against a lesser opponent. So I would jump on this now because looking at Tennessee's upcoming schedule, they have Kent State. So he should be able to pad the stat sheet there. And then they have Oklahoma in week 4, which right now is ranked number 15. That's a primetime game on ABC. So lots of eyeballs will be on that one. If he blows up Oklahoma, I mean, he could be a co-favorite for the Heisman.
Yeah, definitely something that you want to keep track of. And overall, let's give a look to some of the movement that we've seen overall. We've seen Quinn Ewers go from 14-1 now to 6-1 to win the Heisman. Cam Ward 10-1 to 8-1 to win the Heisman. Jackson Dart, who is my favorite to win the Heisman, plus 950 to plus 850. And Carson Beck has actually moved from plus 950 to 10-1. And I think one of the more interesting ones here, and Grace, I'll go back to you on this one. Dillon Gabriel in Oregon. He was 7-1, and now it's moved all the way to 11-1 because despite the fact that he has Evan Stewart, despite the fact that he has Terrence Ferguson and a talented offense there at Oregon, they have not looked good at all. And I think that's being reflected in this Heisman market.
No, so I will say Oregon has been struggling with some injuries to the offensive line, so they had to do some shuffling last week. I mean, Boise State ran the ball like crazy on them with Ashton Genty. That's another one you might want to look at as a long shot in the Heisman market because he did exactly what he was supposed to do against lesser competition, 6 touchdowns week 1, and then 3 against Oregon's defensive front. Anyways, back to Dillon Gabriel, though. They had to shuffle the offensive line later on in the game. They moved their right guard to center, and that ended up working. It gave them a much higher success rate. So a few issues going on over there, but I said this on yesterday's show. If Dillon Gabriel was as good as he's supposed to be, he would be in the NFL right now. So I'm still not sold on him, but they obviously have a big game coming up against Oregon State. They have a Big Ten schedule, so there's going to be lots of opportunities to prove he belongs in this upper echelon of quarterbacks.
Yeah, speaking of the NFL, I want to toss it here to Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, no, I was going to comment on Dillon Gabriel. I think that, Oregon's lack of domination in the first 2 games against Idaho and, of course, against Boise State, it takes you out of it. I mean, he's got a big game against Oregon State this week, which will be important. But, they struggle to beat Boise. They struggle to beat Idaho. That doesn't spell itself to a Heisman Trophy winner. And I think the Nico pick is really good, Grace, because they're going to be undefeated going into Alabama, assuming they can beat Oklahoma. And, one thing I think you have to play in this market is you have to play teams that are going to get a lot of exposure, Texas. You've got to play a team that can promote the hell out of their quarterback, Texas. And you've got to get a team that's going to be relatively undefeated, Texas. So I think it's really about how do you handle this, right? I see this very similar to American Idol. You have to be able to get the voters to see your player, to see your contestant, and do they have enough support from the local area? So I love your Jackson Dart pick. I don't know if Mississippi has enough capital in terms of influence around the nation to get him the Heisman. Now, if they're undefeated and the number 1 seed at the end of the year, or they pick there, yeah, now you got a chance. But to me, with Carson Beck in the Southeast Conference and Quinn Ewers, I think it's a two-man race. I think Cam Ward will slide down as they go through and have some struggles because Cam Ward's so good, but he's inconsistent, Harrison. So I loved your Jackson Dart selection. It's a little bit like last year. Femi was all over Bo Nix for the Heisman, and he had Heisman numbers. He did. The problem was, nobody watched him play out at Oregon. We were all asleep.
Yeah, Ole Miss is definitely going to have some marquee wins to really capture the attention of the nation. I like that you're pointing that out here because it is a vote that is made by the voters. It's not necessarily like computed by anything. It's definitely up to the people. So as it pertains to Dart, definitely going to need some marquee wins so that they can be in prime time, so they could be a team that's being seen overall. When you actually look at this Heisman list, obviously, Michael, it's dominated by quarterbacks per usual. As you've been speaking to people in the NFL, what are the impressions that you're getting from some of these prospects that we're seeing in the Heisman market?
Well, I think Carson Beck has a lot of people's attention. He's 6'4". He's got a great arm. He's surrounded by a great supporting cast. So I think he has that. I think certainly Quinn Ewers has improved and he's gotten better. Jalen Milroe is a little bit along the lines of Anthony Richardson. He's not as big as Anthony, but they have similar kind of styles. I think Sanders at Colorado has to prove to people that he's going to be more of a kind of a leader and a team guy. I think one of the things you have to do when scouting quarterbacks is you have to go to the game. And why do you want to go to the game? You go to the game because you want to watch the quarterback's interaction with his teammates. You want to see a guy who's going to lift other people up. You want to see a guy who's not spoiled. You want to see a guy who didn't grow up in a 3-car garage family. You want to see somebody who can identify with his teammates, who can get comfortable. I think, Grace, there's no question that Sanders has talent, but I know you're an expert on Colorado. I just don't know if there's an endearing quality with his teammates.
Yeah, no, Sanders is out of this for sure. I mean, we said that last week. Colorado has to win games, but I actually wanted to go back to Carson Beck because his odds got slightly longer, and this is after a 242-yard, 5-touchdown performance against Tennessee Tech. I know it's weak competition, but that's exactly what you're supposed to do against lesser competition. And before that, he had a clean game against Clemson. So it feels to me like people are already getting Georgia fatigue, and I don't blame them. But that's not Carson Beck's fault. But SEC play for the Bulldogs does begin this week against Kentucky. If we're going off of how Kentucky played last week, he should be able to light them up. Then number 4, Alabama. That's a huge chance for them. You see on the schedule, they get Texas later. They get Ole Miss, Tennessee. So lots of opportunities for Carson Beck here to get into that top 3.
Definitely want to keep track
I mean,
of
that
all of
that Georgia game is going to be huge. That Georgia game, Alabama game is going to be huge to making this decision.
Definitely want to keep track of all the marquee games on the schedule and try to get in on that market before it becomes too late. One of the bigger movements that we've also seen as well, maybe we'll touch on it later on the show, quarterback for the USC Trojans, Miller Moss, has gone from 22-1 to 18-1. So definitely something that you want to keep track of. But I think one of the bigger takeaways, Grace pointed out, Nico Iamaleava gone from, he's from 12-1 still, but you can find him 4-1 at Caesars. Might want to catch on to that one. I got it right. Thank you. Iamaleava.
Proud of you.
I think I got the hang of it now. All right, when we come back, Will Hill is going to join us for his best bets. Stay tuned to VSiN Morning Line.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
Looking for the ultimate sports betting podcasts? VSiN has got you covered. With a wide range of podcasts covering every major sport, we're here to help you make smarter bets every season. The Baseball Betting Show with Greg Peterson gives you daily insights into finding value on each day's MLB card. And check out Long Shots, where we deep dive into the world of golf betting, providing you with expert insights to help you bet every tournament. Find all of these podcasts and more at VSiN.com/podcasts or your favorite podcast platform.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line, getting you ready for another week of college and NFL football with our best bets. Grace Remington, Michael Lombardi, and Harrison Sanford joining you. And now Will Hill joins us on the Progressive guest line with his best bets for this upcoming weekend. Will Hill, VSiN contributor, host of the Shoulda Bet More podcast, and host of the Bear Bets podcast with Fox Sports. Will, thank you for being here. Let's start with the Steelers and Broncos. We were talking about that earlier in the show, how this is going to be a really ugly game. I came here ready to give out the under 37. That has since moved, but I'm a big fan of sweaty unders. You are still taking the under 36.5. Why?
Yeah, this under is low, but I still don't think it's low enough. I mean, Pittsburgh is basically a service academy now. They play really good defense, and on offense, they just either hand it off with Fields, or Fields keeps it himself and runs, and they know, hey, just don't turn it over, rely on our defense. Same thing as last week, why I like the Pittsburgh-Atlanta under. You have two coaches who probably go into the game thinking, hey, don't screw it up, don't turn it over. If it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3 at midfield, most coaches go for it now. I don't know that these two guys will. It'll be a 16-14 type of game. I'm sure Nick's, with some of the mistakes he made and almost made last week, Peyton's going to want to be conservative and manage him. I know he's in a better spot this week than at Seattle, which is a tough way to start your career. But to me, this is don't turn it over. This is field position, field goals, ugly, 16-14, 14-13. I think 17 points wins this game. So, again, I know it's a low total, but I don't think it's low enough. I will go under here, Pittsburgh and Denver.
Yeah, I think that clock's going to keep running, don't you? I mean, I think that's one of the things about this game. It's going to be this game in the 4 o'clock window, or if it's at 4:05, it'll be over before 6:30. They'll be easily get to 60 minutes for this one, so it's going to keep flying. All right, let's talk about Jacksonville, who I thought blew the game last week. ATN's fumble going in the end zone. Next play, Tyreek Hill touchdown. Doug Peterson doing Doug Peterson-like things. In terms of going for it on 4th down in his own territory. He skirted that issue. But I thought Jacksonville was impressive. I know they gave up a ton of yards. But you like the Browns, who I didn't think were very good at all. And Deshaun Watson looked, to me, terrible. So, but you're going to take the Browns in 3.5. Now, just for there's some 3.5s out there, but mostly that line's moved back down to 3.
Yeah, and this opened at 4 on Monday. I think you need the 3.5 here. 3.5 is such a key number. More games land on 3 than any other number in the NFL. But just directionally, I like Cleveland. I think it's a hard exercise to do, but if you could just back the team that kind of looked the worst the week before, you're going to do well. And if you look at the box score against Dallas, Cleveland only gave up 265 yards. It was they were -2 in turnovers, and they gave up a punt return for a touchdown. So, it's not as bad as it looks in terms of that. I mean, Watson was awful, and Lombardi, you got a number 1 pick for Trent Richardson, and they got rid of you. I don't know what they would have done to you if you'd made this Watson deal, but that's that's a story for another day.
They would have destroyed me, Will. I mean, they would have hung me out. The great beat writers who are still there in the same job would have killed me if for that. I mean, look, let's face it. But the owner really made the Jimmy Haslam made the Deshaun. You can kill Andrew Berry. You can kill Paul DePodesta. I mean, to me, their team is not. They could care less about culture. They're truly an analytical team now. When you bring Kadarius Toney in, who doesn't even love football, Andy Reid. If Andy Reid can't get something out of a wide receiver, what makes you think you can? Right? What makes you think you can? And so you put him on your practice squad, and all it's going to do is create problems. I don't like their culture. I would worry in this game for you because I think, to me, Cleveland defense on the road. Plus, let's remember now, going into North Florida with the heat and humidity, I didn't think Cleveland looked in great shape either on Sunday. I think that defensive line wears down, and when that defensive line wears down, you can make some plays. I think you're right. If this is 3.5, maybe you have to take Cleveland. But at 3, which Circa's at 3 right now, what a lot of people are. The South Point's at 3. I mean, Golden Nuggets at 3. I don't know how you take it at 3. Would you still take it at 3, Will?
No, just because that 3.5 is such a key number. I wouldn't take Jacksonville. My only thing with this, my last thing on this game, Cleveland's over-under for wins was 8.5 before the season. The Jags' over-under for wins was 8.5. That's like 4 days ago. The market was telling us, Vegas was telling us, these are even teams. And the Jacksonville home field advantage is one of the lesser home field advantages in the league. It's only worth maybe point and a half. That 3.5 is not worth the Jags home field is not worth 3.5. So I just think these are even teams. think you're getting a little bit of an overreaction to a terrible performance Sunday for the Browns. And I'll just take the 3.5 at 3. It'd be a pass. It would just be a lean to the Browns.
Well, speaking of horrible performances, a lot of people not happy with how Kirk Cousins looked out there for the Atlanta Falcons. They are still by many people seen to be favorites to win the NFC South, but you actually like them to miss the playoffs at plus odds.
Yeah, and look, as a Viking fan, this is very similar to 6 years ago when the Vikings said, "Hey, all we need is a little bit of an upgraded quarterback, and Cousins is the guy." And that was a Viking team that was 13-3 coming off an NFC title game appearance where they were favored, and they never got back there. They never got close. They missed the playoffs next year. So Cousins, look, good guy, made a ton of money. I'm sure he's not too bothered by what I think, but you get what you ask for when you sign up with Cousins, and he just can't move. He's never been able to move. And he looked like, I'm curious what Lombardi, what you think. He looked like a pitcher who lost his fastball. There was no juice on his throws, no zip. And to me, even money to miss the playoffs. They're already 0-1. They're going to Philly for Monday night for game 2 here, week 2. This is actually the third year in a row Cousins has played week 2 in Philly on primetime, which is a weird little quirk here. But at Philly week 2, then the Chiefs. So you're looking at very possibly 0-3. Then the next 2 games after that, Saints and Bucks. Maybe you split those and you're like 1-4. And hey, at that point, if you want to buy back on them to make the playoffs, maybe you can do that. But to me, even money to miss the playoffs with this schedule, they are staring 0-3, 1-4 right in the face. I know it's dangerous to play, this game in the NFL where this game's a win, this game's a loss, but it's very possible they're off to a start where they're in a hole and they can't dig themselves out here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you because I think when you watched him play, first of all, it was a horrendous game plan by Zach Robinson. To not double T.J. Watt the minute he got off the bus before he even walked in the locker room was a huge mistake. I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions, I think Pro Football Focus has the Falcons' offensive line as a top 5 line. That's a joke. I don't know who's grading tape for PFF, but they can't pass protect. They can run, they can play action pass, but they can't. And all this nonsense that we've heard all year about the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, they got Kyle Pitts. He's the 5th pick in the draft. They got Bijan. They got Drake London. They're the slowest offensive team in football. They can't make an explosive play. People said, well, they moved the ball into the territory of they moved the ball against Pittsburgh because every drive has to be 8 to 10 plays. They can't make an explosive play. And I think Cousins' inability to move around is a deterrent to this offensive line, and I think he's going to continue to get attacked. They're going to have a hard time blocking Philly. McCrary, the right tackle, can't block anybody in pass protection. And now let's get to the defense, right? Oh, they signed Judon and they paid A.J. Terrell. A.J. Terrell couldn't cover George Pickens at all in the game. The biggest play of the game to me, which tells the story of the Atlanta Falcons, which is the same story that was being told last year, was they couldn't stop Pittsburgh in the 2-minute drill with 26 seconds. They gave up a field goal at the end of the half. Like, that's inexcusable, Will. That tells me everything you need to know about their team. They can't rush the passer. They can't get off the field in 4th down. I mean, I just think it's a comedy how you've lived it with Kirk Cousins. All of a sudden we woke up after, we do this a lot in a lot of areas, but all of a sudden Kirk Cousins went from couldn't win a big game that he's now going to take Atlanta to the Super Bowl. I mean, how does that make any sense, Will?
Yep, it doesn't. And they made another mistake right before the half. Like you said, like 26 seconds left. They kick off. They don't kick off in bounds and let the clock run. They give the Pittsburgh the touchback. No time comes off the clock. A few plays later, they're in field goal range. If you keep the ball in bounds there, Pittsburgh probably runs out of time.
Why would you want to do that, Will? Why would you want to do that? I mean, you're talking about a Super Bowl winning general manager, Terry Fontenot. I mean, you got all the answers. Grace, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but when you start talking about the Falcons and they have the audacity to say that Bill Belichick wasn't qualified to be in their top 3, they're going to hear it from me all year long. So, Grace, take this back over while I steam off.
Well, that's good. We're definitely going to hit on the Falcons later on in the show. Will, let's get some college bets in here while we still have time. Notre Dame, Purdue, that one opened with the Fighting Irish, the look ahead made the Irish a 16-point favorite. Obviously, after the upset to NIU, that number changed. It now sits at 10. Which side are you on here?
I'm faded Notre Dame again. I was on here last week. I picked Northern Illinois. You guys should have told me, hey, take the money line. I didn't know they actually win the game.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a fluke last week. Leonard got hit constantly. They didn't really have much of a downfield passing game. To me, this is just not a very good team, very inexperienced on the offensive line, and Purdue's not going to, feel sorry for Notre Dame. This is going to be a big game for Purdue. I just don't know that Notre Dame has the explosiveness to really pull away from anybody. I'll take the 10.5 here with Purdue.
Yeah, it goes as Riley Leonard's legs go, and they weren't going that well against NIU. 30 seconds. You like Tennessee to win the SEC now. Why?
Schedule looks a little easier. They have a really tough game at Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's not maybe as good as we think. And they have a really good quarterback and a monster front four defensively. That's a good combination. They get Bama at home. I don't think they'll actually win, but they could possibly get to an SEC title game at 12-1. That's a good number.
They're definitely looking like a top 4 team in the country, I think, with that defense. All right, Will Hill, contributor for VSiN, host of the Shoulda Bet More podcast, and you can also find him on the Bear Bets podcast with Fox Sports. Thank you for joining us. On the other side of the VSiN Morning Line, we're resetting at the top of the hour. More NFL news.
A new football season means a new lineup on VSiN. Start your day with sharp